Alright, on to reading 3, and this is one of the most difficult readings I've seen. The first reason that it's difficult is because it's so very difficult to find where all of these questions come from. We have a multiple choice. Now, sometimes multiple choice can help us a little bit because they tell us where it comes from, but the problem is they say for the last one in the last paragraph. So that tells me that this can come from anywhere. Then we've got matching headings, matching sentences, also difficult, and a yes, no, not given. So the first thing you've got to decide, I would say, don't do the multiple choice. Are you going to start with this, or are you going to start with this? So we look for some kind of language that we can scan for, some kind of numbers or dates or names, and we don't see it. That's a problem. So now you need to decide which one will you choose. My advice would be to start with this one, and the reason for that is because some of these will be not given, and it's possible that you will waste a lot of time searching for something that isn't there. So one of the keys here is when you get this kind of really difficult passage 3 where you can't really see anything, don't panic, plan your strategy and stick to it. So we're going to look for these and we're going to find them. Ignore the other 2 question types for now. Don't make the mistake of trying to search for everything at the same time. It's just too much. So let's look at some keywords, and then we've just got to scan like crazy. Values, maybe change. You see, these words aren't great words to scan for because they can paraphrase these. This is the important thing there, what they might lose. A dominant boss. And organizations with few rules. I wouldn't scan for this because they probably paraphrased this. Sometimes they paraphrase this as well, but usually this is where the scanning language is. So, values change, lose dominant boss, organizations with a few rules. And now you just got to take a deep breath and start scanning. Remind yourselves, say it over and over in your head. Values change, dominant boss, organizations with a few rules, and lose. I see nothing there. And if I'm scanning carefully, I see values over there. That might help me. Values change and lose is what we're looking for. I see nothing in that 3rd paragraph. There's value again. There's change. Change again. Lost, which is lose. Loss again, lose. Dominant boss, I don't see. Scan, 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 scan. I don't see it there. I don't see it there. And this is one of the things that makes this so difficult is they've gone all the way. I don't see it there. And finally, I see dominant boss down there, which is really tough of them to do. They've skipped all of this. And then organizations with no rules is over there. Wow. Really, that's tough. Spread it out everywhere. Okay, so now we can maybe answer a few of these. Employees whose values match those of their employers are more likely to. Research shows that the fit, this is the match between an employee and a company, makes a difference to what contribution they make and whether 2 years after they join, they're still at the company. Contribution they make, still at the company. Employees whose values match, they said fit, those of their employers, more likely to. Actually, we could have possibly scanned, maybe I should have highlighted employees there as well. Make a contribution and stay at the company. And it's G, remain in their jobs, stay at the company. So if you found the sentence, it wasn't so bad, but the problem was finding the sentence. At times of change, people tend to. When things change, we are hardwired to play it safe. At times of change, people tend to not take chances, share, become, avoid risk. Play it safe. If people are aware of what they might lose, they will often. Studies show that we invariably take more gambles when threatened with a loss than when offered a reward. Take more gambles. Take chances. People working under a dominant boss are liable to. This behavior is not, but can happen where there's a leader is overbearing. So we need to find what this behavior is. Crew members exhibit a passivity when the flight captain makes a wrong-head decision. Show passivity, become competitive, ignore their duties. I don't see anything about passivity. Maybe read a bit more. He calls it captainitis, so he's introduced a new word here, captainitis, and that is the tendency of team members to opt out, to not do their responsibilities, and that is ignore their duties. Duties and responsibility, it's good synonyms. Opt out of their responsibilities, ignore their duties. So that is F. Employees in organizations with few rules are likely to do what? This encouraged free interchange of ideas. Share their ideas, B. Quite straightforward. So, like I said, if you found them, if you could find the sentences, they weren't so bad. But really finding them was tough. A lot of scanning, detailed scanning, not easy scanning. Right. So then we're on to the yes, no, not given. Again, we've got to find where. Physical surroundings, potential, intelligence, smaller companies, maybe manager, colleague. One thing that you could possibly do here is just look where these come from, and then you don't look in those paragraphs, because IELTS tends to just use a paragraph for one question type. It's a risky strategy because it takes some time, but this is a risky situation that we're in here with this reading, because it's really difficult to find these things. So we've got the last paragraph. That's a multiple choice paragraph. We've got Francis Crick and DNA. So that's a multiple choice paragraph. Between them, we've got breakfast cereal packets. We've used these two. There's breakfast cereal. So that's a multiple choice paragraph. And then the fourth one has got this in inverted commas, might help you a little bit. We used that, and if you scan, you can find it there. So that means that this is a multiple choice paragraph. I'll do the same thing with the others. We used that in the other question type. We use that in the other question type, and we use those two. Now, I'm not saying that they will not choose from those paragraphs. They can. But it's more likely that they're going to take something from here, here, and here. So at first, we'll just look in those paragraphs and see what we can find in those, and then go back and find the others. This is possibly number one, paragraph 1. Physical surroundings in which a person works play a key role in their creativity. And they say people working in luxurious centers don't feel creative, and there are those who don't have a budget but who innovate successfully. So they're saying it doesn't matter about your environment. You can have a nice environment, not be creative, a horrible environment, and be creative. So the physical surroundings do not play a key role. So that's no, really tough. People have potential to be creative. I don't see it. Equally matched intelligence. I'm looking there and I'm looking there. I don't see it. Don't panic if you don't see them. Smaller companies. Again, I'm looking around. I don't really see smaller companies. There's small pockets of innovation, but that's not about small companies. And I don't see it there. Let's try one more. A manager's approval is more persuasive than that of a colleague. Not there. Here they're talking about social proof. This is peer power. This is your colleagues. research shows that peer power is much more powerful than the boss's speech. So this is your colleagues, this is the boss's speech. Manager's approval more persuasive than that of a colleague. Here's our target language. They're actually saying peer power is more powerful than the boss's speech. So this is also no. So this is really tough because there's a couple of not givens in here. One or two of them are yes, and one or two of them are not given. I don't know which are which. I couldn't find them. So if I were you, I would just put not given for all three of them. I think there's two not givens probably, and you lose 1 mark, but you'll save so much time because you're going to be scanning for 3 of these things. You're going to be scanning through the whole thing, and 2 of them are not there. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. So I would just say not given, not given, not given. You lose 1 mark probably, maybe 2, but probably 1, and just continue with the multiple choice. Most people have the potential to be creative. Was actually at the end of this. Almost every individual can be creative. Most people have potential to be creative. Almost every individual can, that's potential, be creative in the right circumstances. So that one was yes. I searched and searched and searched for that one. It's not given, and that one is not given as well. These 2 could have eaten so much of your time. Now, one important thing I just want to mention here is how important the studies were. This introduced an answer. This introduced an answer. That introduced an answer. And that introduced an answer. So I'll just make these green just to show you where everything came from. So before we do the multiple choice, I'll just show you what they did here, which you can see why it's so difficult. They've mixed everything up. All of the question types come from everywhere. That's why it's so difficult. There's only 1 paragraph they chose 2 questions. There's 1 paragraph they chose no questions. So they've done everything that they can to make this as difficult as possible. The green is yes, no, not given. The pink is multiple choice, and the yellow is the matching. Okay, but also just realize how important these, generally in IELTS, when they have the results of a study, they often like to ask a question about those results because that is, of course, very important information. So I've done it 1, 2, 3, 4 times here. Right, so let's move on to this multiple choice of this horrible reading. The example of the $1 Million Quartet underlines the writer's point about. Again here, check your time. There's only 4 marks here. This is going to take a long time to do all of these. Take your time. Otherwise, if you don't have time, you need to check some other marks or something. Just go D, 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 D or whatever. B, 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 B. Choose one. But let's take a look. The example of the $1 Million Quartet underlines the writer's point about. So why is he talking about the $1 Million Quartet? I'm just going to remove all of these colors. So there's a picture about $1 Million Quartet. You have to read the whole paragraph. There was a 5th guy, but he didn't understand the ambition, and he didn't believe in it, so he wasn't inspired, so he left. He didn't stay with them. Why does he talk about that? And it's actually back over here. He's still talking about, it's an example about this. If there's a fit between the values and the company's values. They talk about it again there. So all these 3 paragraphs are all about the value fit, the match between the employee and the employer's values. And that is the shared objective. Some of you might think it's that, but it's not about working together. It's having about values that match, shared fit. That's the word over there. So, like all of these, incredibly difficult. That's why I suggest you just guess them. James Watson won the race. Why did they win the race? So here they introduce Watson. Watson they just introduce him. When he asked how they cracked the code, he said something that stunned me, that surprised me a lot. He said, and here comes the answer, they succeeded because they were aware that they were not the most intelligent. Were aware, not the most intelligent. So that one is A. I think if you found the sentence, it wasn't too bad. Why does he mention these? Probably over here. Something as simple as writing deepens individuals' engagement in the project. Engagement is commitment. Commitment to an idea, engagement to a project. And the last one, it's important for employees to do what? We're talking about employees. Leaders should encourage everyone to contribute and assure all concerned that every is important and given full attention. So they want to feel that they are valuable, feel that their contributions are valued. Wow, unbelievably difficult. There's not much I can teach you here. I think, as you can see, these multiple choice were so difficult. They were the most difficult of the lot. Unless you're going for band 9, maybe band 8, just guess those. You're just going to spend a lot of time on them and then probably get them wrong anyway. So just go B, 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 B. Spend that time somewhere else. If you found these weren't too difficult, these were pretty difficult, but it's these two not givens that made it a real problem. But the biggest problem with this whole essay was that they chose everything from everywhere. All right, thank goodness I'm finished with that one. Let's move on to the next reading 1.